Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Take Control of Your Blood Pressure. Welcome to all of you joining from various time zones around the country. If we have not met, my name is Lynn Morales, and I'm a naturopath in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I've been a naturopath for nearly 20 years. And that means what I do is I look at the body from a holistic perspective, and I work to identify the root cause of an illness in someone that I might be working with. I want to thank you for taking this very important proactive step in taking care of your health today. We have a lot of information to cover, so I want to get started and help us dive in. Before we get too deep, though, let me let you know that I am not here to offer medical advice. I am not here to diagnose, treat, or cure any kind of disease. I am simply sharing information with you. And what I'd like you to do is to know in advance. We put together a lot of resources to put this presentation together. And what I'd like you to do is to be able to sit back and relax and know that you're going to have access to these tools, and there'll be a playback provided to you or accessible to you. So let's get started with what in the world is blood pressure anyway? It's important to understand what it means, because you probably don't know, you just have an assumption, but it's actually the force that's needed to push blood through your arteries coming from your heart to deliver oxygen-rich blood to the body. So when your blood pressure is measured, you get a high value that's called your systolic and a low value that's called your diastolic. And the high number is the highest pressure that occurs in your blood vessels when your heart is contracting, okay? And then that low value is pressure in your arteries between heartbeats when your heart is relaxed. So I don't want to assume that you know that. Let's cover that, right up front. So a blood pressure reading of 120/80, and that is millimeters of mercury, is considered healthy. So 128/80 millimeters of mercury, that's healthy. Now, high blood pressure or hypertension is typically considered anything over 140/90 millimeters of mercury. Although the updated guidelines from the American Heart Association now have 130/80 as a potential cutoff for a diagnosis of hypertension. So just so you know, it's possible you just went right over the radar there and just barely got in if you were diagnosed with that. So having an elevation in just one of the two values may also be enough for a hypertension diagnosis. That means the 130 number or the over 80 number, that 80 number, either one of those a little bit out of range could give you that diagnosis. So what exactly is high blood pressure? So let's start by understanding what it means to have high blood pressure. So when the pressure required to circulate your blood is high, it places an abnormal amount of stress on your heart muscle and the smaller arteries, and it reduces the amount of oxygen that's delivered to the smallest blood vessels in your body. So both of these consequences account for many secondary effects of hypertension. So let's talk about secondary effects, because you might have some of these. One is a cough, two, diarrhea or constipation, dizziness or lightheadedness, erection problems, feeling nervous, feeling tired, weak, drowsy, or a lack of energy, a headache, and even nausea or vomiting. All can be secondary effects of hypertension. So let's talk about causes. So according to medical physiology textbooks, as much as 95% of hypertension is called essential hypertension, meaning the underlying cause is unknown. That's interesting wording, right? Essential hypertension, just because they don't know what the cause is underlying it. Anyway, so this really isn't true. So I'm going to share that with you. A number of factors have been identified as contributing to high blood pressure. So there is probably a cause, and it's probably one of the ones I'm about to share on this list, okay? So a couple of them, insulin and leptin resistance. Now, if you don't know what some of those are hormones, and they all are how your body is handling particularly things related to your blood sugar and your hunger and things like that. And in my practice, which we can do this work long distance as well, we can actually identify if you have leptin resistance or insulin resistance in a weight and metabolism scan that I offer in the office. Again, it's available to anybody around the country. It doesn't have to be done in office. But insulin and leptin resistance, this is at the core of the problem for most people. But it's certainly not all people with hypertension. And it's vital to make sure you're burning fat as your primary fuel and following a cyclical ketogenic diet. So understand this, generally speaking, you go to one doctor for blood pressure concerns or hypertension, and you'd actually go to a different doctor to address any kind of blood sugar, insulin type issues. You see the connection there? Maybe you don't. So here, let me bridge the gap. The point is, the doctor you're seeing for one thing, blood pressure, might make the assumption the underlying cause of this person's hypertension is unknown. Why? Because that doctor doesn't understand or isn't in the specialty of addressing blood sugar. Aha, now you start to see how it all connects. So insulin actually helps your body to store magnesium. I don't know if you knew that, but that's what helps you relax your muscles. Isn't that neat? So if your cells have grown resistant to insulin, then you won't be able to store magnesium. And that leads to blood vessel constriction and rising blood pressure. Yeah. So as your insulin and your leptin levels rise, it causes your blood pressure to increase. That's how it connects. So if your hypertension is the result of elevated insulin levels, then dietary intervention is important. So if you're one of the people on this webinar and you actually know already you have some of that going on with the blood sugar part, probably want to get in touch with our office. There's a number of ways we can help you. You don't have to be in the same town as us. There's a lot of opportunity for us to work with you. Now, another cause of high blood pressure is elevated uric acid levels. These are significantly associated with hypertension. So any program adopted to address high blood pressure needs to address your uric acid levels as well. Now, if you have recent lab work, I just want to share this with you. If you have recent lab work, you can submit that to our office and we will actually help that evaluation piece to be looked at on that uric acid. And actually what we do is we help address nutritionally these kind of measures, and your lab work is key, and we give a great understanding and reading of what all of that lab work really means. You'll get great descriptions. So that's something that you might want to take advantage of as well. Again, our website is accesscompletewellness.com. It'll be at the end of this presentation, but just so you have it, that's how you can reach out to us for any of these services I'm referencing. Now, did you know another cause of high blood pressure is poor nutrition in childhood? Yeah. So they've actually shown that it raises the risk of high blood pressure in adulthood. So that's important to know. So if you know young people right now, do your best to make sure they're getting good nutrition so we can avoid this problem in them later. And then another possible cause of high blood pressure, common cause, is air and sound pollution. Who knew, right? Air pollution affects blood pressure by causing inflammation. And noise pollution asserts an effect via your nervous and hormonal systems. So living in an area plagued by constant noise pollution, like busy streets and nighttime traffic, has been shown to increase the risk of hypertension by 6%, compared to living in an area where noise levels are at least 20% lower. To address these factors, you want to avoid smoking on that air pollution part, right? Consider using earplugs during sleep if you live in a noisy neighborhood, and take some steps to improve your indoor air quality. So lots of options out there on the market for things like that. So what are some of the effects? Well, unfortunately, 20% of people who suffer from high blood pressure are unaware of the condition. So significantly, it increases their risk of potential health problems. So with uncontrolled or poorly controlled hypertension, you increase the risk of significant effects that reduce your quality of life and have a negative effect on your lifespan. So hypertension increases your risk of stroke, as it can cause blood vessels in your brain to rupture or clog more easily. And in both instances, oxygen supply to a portion of the brain ceases, resulting in a stroke. The increased workload in the heart muscle may result in heart failure. And then the damage to the arteries supplying the heart muscle with oxygen may result actually in a heart attack. So hypertension may damage the smaller arteries, reducing the amount of oxygen delivered and severely impacting the ability of organs to function, like your kidneys, and then body parts like your eyes. Yeah. So this may actually result in kidney failure and vision loss. Interesting what the research is showing. So the damage to smaller blood vessels is called microvascular disease. And it can lead to angina, or what some people call chest pain, when the heart muscle doesn't get enough oxygen, and it can even lead to sexual dysfunction. So atherosclerosis is another form of damage to the arterial system from hypertension, and it may result in peripheral vascular disease. The narrowing of the arteries may occur in the legs, the arms, the stomach, head, triggering pain, fatigue, all kinds of things. So who realized, right, all the effects of high blood pressure? So here's the question. What's your risk? So in the US, an estimated 1 in 3 have high blood pressure, and another 1 in 3 have pre-hypertension, I should say. So typically, your systolic pressure offers the most information about how stiff your arteries are and how much pressure is needed to push blood around your body. And then the elevated systolic pressure is a major, and I mean major risk of cardiovascular disease and stroke. Now, we did another presentation already. We did a couple, you should just go check out our library, but we did one on brain health. But did you know that you can reduce your risk of stroke by 43% by just doing a couple of things? We'll tell you about that in a minute. But did you know that 80% of strokes are preventable? Gosh, 80%. Wouldn't you rather be on that side of it? So the recent studies are suggesting that hypertension, especially elevated systolic pressure, may also raise your risk of dementia. And that's in our brain health presentation. So be sure to check that out. So previous studies have already shown that stroke victims, even if it's a minor stroke, are at an increased risk of Alzheimer's. And this adds further weight to recommendations about your blood pressure, keeping it under control, and how to protect your cognitive health. So, we have a tool in our office. It's called BrainSpan. If you go out to our website, accesscompletewellness.com, and go under our services, Access Brain Health, you will learn about BrainSpan there. We have a video explaining it, very, very quick video, but it is an incredibly easy tool for us to help you anywhere across the country identify what is your cognitive health right now. It's not a test to be scared of. It's a test to be grateful for, because it's a super easy way we can start to turn things around for you. But again, you'll learn a lot more about it in our brain health presentation. But let me move on. Let's talk a little bit more. We're still talking about risk here, right? So let's look at the risk here. There's another study that found that in older adults, that having elevated average systolic blood pressure puts you at greater risk for brain lesions. And those are associated with Alzheimer's disease. Yeah. So the average blood pressure of the seniors enrolled in the study was 134/71, and 87% of them were taking medications for high blood pressure at the time. So it only got them down to 134 with the blood pressure meds, right? But the participants were followed until they died, which is about an average of 8 years. And that's usually standard with when someone gets diagnosed with Alzheimer's. They usually live about 8 years. So the average age of death was 89. Here's what the researchers found. That the risk of brain lesions was higher in people with higher average systolic blood pressure across the years. For a person with one standard deviation above the average systolic blood pressure, so for example, 147 versus 134, there was a 46% increased risk of having one or more brain lesions, specifically infarcts, the equivalent of 9 years of brain aging. Now, here's the important thing. That brain span report, that helps us measure your brain's trajectory for aging. The great news is, and I am a living example, I went through a very stressful period of time with my parents who had dementia from strokes. And I learned about brain span after they passed. In fact, literally like 6 weeks after they passed, I learned about brain span. And I had been a caregiver for 8 years plus with the two of them. Very difficult journey, especially with two at the same time. But here's what happened. I was in a pretty difficult space health-wise when the journey ended, and of course going through the grief process. But when I discovered brain span, thank God, I chose to take that test. It's a very simple blood stick test, no big deal. We can send the kits to you directly. Simple blood stick test. And what I did is I actually was able to turn my numbers around. Now my brain's trajectory for aging was sad. I don't have the reports in front of me, but I'm just going to tell you, I wasn't happy. And it was, and they do the report very nice in a red, yellow, green stoplight, kind of effect. And so I was not in a good space for my age. And I was able to turn those scores around in less than 90 days. And all my measures for cognitive health are in the green now, all of them. So blood stick test measures 3 of the measures. And then there are another 4 measures that are done with a cognitive online test that kind of measures a few other things. So fabulous report. And how cool is it to, they're even seeing results faster now, turning it around in 60 days. It's not a big price to pay to start to turn it in the other direction. So those with that one standard deviation above the average systolic blood pressure that I mentioned, they had a 46% greater chance of having large lesions and a 36% greater risk of the small lesions. So important info. Now, diet comes into everything. So one of the most important dietary changes needed to improve high blood pressure is to eliminate or drastically reduce sugar, and especially processed fructose in your diet. Now, you're looking at this picture going, well, that doesn't look like sugar. Well, let me tell you, I will make sure I include a link in your resources to our website that shows a video, a little bit about halfway through, I guess, of how the bread in that picture on this sandwich turns to sugar, right? Because that's how your body does things. And it's going to take those carbohydrates and turn them into sugar. And then people wonder why they're insulin resistant or have issues like that going on. Okay. So important, but you'll actually get to see how much sugar the average person eats in a year. And you think it's not you, but you'll be surprised when you watch how they demonstrate it. It's really quite fascinating. But anyway, back to this. So one 2010 study discovered that those who consumed 74 grams or more per day of fructose, which is about 2.5 sugary drinks, they had a 77% greater risk of having a blood pressure level of 160 over 100, which is stage 2 hypertension. And consuming 74 grams or more of fructose per day also increased the risk of a 135 over 85 blood pressure reading by 26%, and a reading of 140 over 90 by 30%. So another dietary culprit is trans fats, and those are responsible for atherosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries. So this is another trigger for hypertension. So avoid trans fats, and I mean all of them. So that would be hydrogenated fats like margarine, vegetable oils, butter-like spreads, and baked goods like you see in this picture. So the easiest way to cut both sugar and unhealthy fats from your diet is to replace it with processed foods, those processed foods with really good whole foods. And that's going to address not only insulin and leptin resistance, like I mentioned, but even that elevated uric acid level piece that I'm talking about. So a type of fat you may need more of is an animal-based omega-3. So if you're a vegetarian out there and you're thinking you're getting what you need for your brain, you're not. Just sharing, you're going to need to choose to eat at least fish or take fish products of some sort. And you want a good one. You definitely want a good one. We can help you figure out what the good ones are. If you burp fish when you take fish oil, or you get an upset stomach, you don't have a good one. And if they smell funny, that's also another hint. So research has shown that those with the highest serum levels of omega-3s also have the lowest blood pressure readings. So on average, that systolic pressure was 4 points lower, and their diastolic pressure was 2 points lower compared to those with the lowest omega-3 blood levels. So it's recommended to get your omega-3 index tested at least once a year. I've already told you how to do that. That's the program called BrainSpan. It's a simple test, very easy. You get really cool results, and we can show you how to turn things around if they're not where they need to be. And guess what? When you get them where they need to be, which is the recommendation is they should be, the index level should be above 8%. Something magical happens when you hit 8.1 on that index, and your brain starts to work and everything starts to work, and you feel so much different. So the best way to boost the omega-3 is to eat plenty of oily fish that's low in mercury and other pollutants. So some good options are like wild-caught Alaskan salmon, sardines, and anchovies, and then also like the fish oil that I've already referenced, right? So keep this in mind, that BrainSpan testing is really invaluable. I mean, it doesn't hurt you to get that done, and it's on our website, accesscompletewellness.com. And I want just to make sure you understand that 96% of our US population is not getting enough fish in their system. I eat salmon once a week and I was low. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that. Now, what else can we do on diet? How about beets? Beets contain naturally high levels of nitrates. And that's what your digestive system converts into nitric oxide. And that's a compound that relaxes and widens blood vessels, which in turn actually lowers your blood pressure. So there's a neat trick. So what about nitric oxide? So high intensity exercise will also trigger nitric oxide production in your body. And ideally, you want to eat nitrate rich veggies and exercise. You want to do both. Okay. So without question, this is high on my list of recommendations, right behind reducing that insulin resistance. And we, have ways to help you with that if you already have that going on, or you have that going on. So potassium is a naturally occurring mineral that your body uses as an electrolyte, and it's vital for normal functioning. Diarrhea, vomiting, excessive sweating, like when you use a sauna, and some drugs may deplete or disrupt your potassium balance. But the most common reason your potassium levels are not within normal limits is due to poor dietary choices. The average reported intake of potassium from food is about half of the 4,700 milligrams recommended. So the research actually shows that these low levels of potassium may have a significant impact on your blood pressure, and especially as it relates to the amount of salt normally found in a Western diet. So now your intestinal bacteria is part of your immune system, and researchers discovered that microbes of all kinds play an instrumental role in countless areas of your health. So there's beneficial bacteria, and they also control the growth of disease-causing bacteria, by actually competing for nutrition in attachment sites in your colon. So you want the good bacteria to overcome, right, the disease-causing bacteria. And so this is of immense importance because pathological or pathogenic bacteria and other less beneficial microbes, they can actually wreak havoc in your health, especially if they gain the upper hand. It can also affect your weight. So you're having weight issues, this could be some of it. So your gut microbiome, if you don't know what a microbiome is, go to my website, accesscompletewellness.com. Right on the homepage, there's an actual article on what does a microbiome mean to you, okay? There are many of them. They discovered them a few years back, and they'll probably discover more. But they contain the gut microbiome 100 times as many genes as your body's total genome. And it's involved in important chemical reactions that your gut enzymes cannot perform, including things like fermentation and sulfate reduction. So importantly, your gut microbiome helps generate new compounds, which are called like bacterial metabolites. And they can have either a beneficial or a detrimental impact on your health. And among the most recent research published, the studies are showing beneficial gut bacteria like probiotics actually benefits your liver as well, helps lower blood pressure. Now, some other recent findings suggest regularly consuming probiotics can help relieve hypertension. One analysis of 9 studies that examine associations between the probiotics and the blood pressure found that people who consume probiotics on a regular basis, like yogurt, supplements, kefir, tend to have a lower blood pressure than those who don't consume probiotics. So on average, their systolic blood pressure, that top number, was 3.6 millimeters of mercury lower, and their diastolic blood pressure, the bottom number, was 2.4 millimeters of mercury lower. And so the most significant benefit appeared to be among those whose blood pressure was higher than 130/85. So hear that. So the probiotics that contained a variety of bacteria lowered blood pressure to a greater degree in those people than those containing just one type of bacteria. So the question is, do you currently take a probiotic supplement? If so, how's it working for you? Like if you take a probiotic and you have high blood pressure, might not be working for you. You might not have taken it long enough, or it might be the wrong probiotic. Just because the probiotic works for your neighbor doesn't mean it works for you. We have a number of colonies of bacteria. They're all different. They all handle different jobs. It is important to rotate probiotics because sometimes you need to colonize a different part of the gut. So let's move on and talk a little bit more, staying in this realm though, fermented foods, right? That's, we need to be in that habit. Having a diet rich in unprocessed foods along with cultured or fermented foods is highly recommended. So keep in mind, however, that there's a great difference between traditionally fermented foods and commercially processed pasteurized foods, to which probiotics are just simply added to it. So the latter is not nearly as effective or beneficial as the former. So fortunately, preparing your own fermented foods at home is really easy and pretty cost effective. As a general guideline, you want to eat about a 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup or 2 to 4 ounces of fermented vegetables or other cultured foods like raw yogurt, and preferably have 1 to 3 meals per day with this in it. These other vegetables, right? So regularly is important if you're looking for health benefits. So regularity, meaning you want to do this every day, not every other day, not chinsing on it because you're cutting costs. I know it can be challenging at times, but if you want to nip this in the bud and move it in the right direction, you want to do it as directed every day. And what will happen is your gut will start to learn how to make its own things. If you would just do these fermented foods, your gut will go, oh, I know what to do with that. I know how to make that balance work better in my gut now. So they actually said that Those who consumed probiotics for less than 2 months didn't show any positive impact on their blood pressure readings. And the evidence clearly suggested that regular consumption can make or break the success of probiotics for easing hypertension. So bear in mind that since the cultured foods are efficient detoxifiers, you might experience detox symptoms if you introduce too many at once. So start with very small servings, as little as a teaspoon of fermented vegetables, for example, and then even just a spoon or two of the juice, and slowly work your way up. This is a great way for your intestinal microbiota to have a chance to adjust, right? To adjust. It will do the job for you. Thank God, right? How many of us would forget our heads if it weren't attached? Okay. So your body is super smart if you will give it the tools it needs to do its job. And this is one of the tools, these fermented foods every day. Now let's talk about our diet options. So in addition to eating fermented foods, there are additional dietary strategies that you may want to maintain to help you maintain that blood pressure. So the Mediterranean region of the world, they're really known, right, for rich olives, olive oil, fresh vegetables, fruits, seafood. They don't eat a lot of red meat. And the people in those areas actually are really strong. They're healthy. They live longer than other people around the world. Most of the diet's health benefits of this Mediterranean area are likely due to how low in sugar they really are, with some moderate protein, and then they're high in fresh fruits and vegetables, along with healthy fats. So there's a diet they call PAM, or the Pan-Asian Modified Mediterranean. It's a modification of the Mediterranean diet, and it highlights that really important nature of eating healthy fiber, healthy fat, and just the whole Mediterranean heart healthy diet, and emphasizing the healthy fats in the vegetables while minimizing synthetic fats. There's also a successful diet that is used for reducing blood pressure, the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. It's called the DASH diet, dietary approaches stop hypertension. It consists of mostly fresh vegetables, fruits, lean protein, whole grains, low-fat dairy. And although it's often believed the results are from the low sodium in the diet, it's probably the low sugar and the fructose as well, just as important. So essential oils, they are a plant oil, highly concentrated, often through distillation. Some of the oils that are produced generally from the entire plant, but others are made just using specific parts like the leaves, the bark, or the roots. And these oils have been used in aromatherapy around the world to help reduce stress and improve health. Researchers also have been interested in the effect of the essential oils on reducing blood pressure and cardiovascular health. So I don't know, what's your experience with essential oils? Have you used them before? We're going to provide you a link. We only use Young Living essential oils because we want to promote that people use therapeutic grade A oils. Don't go to the discount stores, buy 12 bottles of different scents for $3. They'll always say on the side, not for internal use. And so that means you can't consume them. But more importantly, it also means you shouldn't be inhaling them, right? You shouldn't put them in a diffuser because they're going in your lungs. And if it's not for internal use, you wouldn't want that in your lungs now, would you? Okay, so Young Living essential oils, therapeutic grade. We will send you a link where you can learn more about it, maybe watch a few videos. And then, well, let me tell you what oils, and then maybe you want to order some oils too. So, everybody's different. Not everybody needs the same oil. I am huge about priority-based healthcare. What's right for Sally is not necessarily right for Jim. Okay. And I'm sorry, that's just how I believe because of the work that I do very uniquely to each person. So I'm going to tell you a few oils, maybe one or two sounds good to you. That might be a good one for you. And maybe it doesn't. And so that might not be the one for you to choose. So, but we can help you here in our office again. We can do this long distance, find the right oil for you. So a couple to try: bergamot. It's an oil that is used a lot in cosmetics for the scent, but research has found that it actually supports a balanced blood pressure. may reduce, feelings of anxiousness and improve your overall mood. Another one's called clary sage. And this has been shown to reduce systolic and diastolic measurements, even helps bring your respiratory rate down and decrease symptoms of stress. Another one is rose. Now, rose can be a really calming effect on your brain. It's demonstrated a major mood impact. And if you impact the mood, you're going to impact blood pressure. Make sense? So another one is frankincense. Maybe if you're familiar with the Bible, you've heard about frankincense before. It's got a lot of medicinal properties to reduce stress and actually promote peace of mind. And then another one I like, rosemary. I remember using this one a lot for some respiratory things as well. So this oil actually retards the hardening of the arteries, which raises blood pressure. And again, I'm just going to be clear. You only want to ingest, because this is what this is talking about. If you were going to use rosemary, you would take it internally. And you do not want to use the stuff you get at the discount store. Please hear me on this. There's Young Living, to my knowledge, they're the only ones that actually have some for internal use, and it's called the Vitality line. You can use it for cooking and things. So, and it's approved to use it for that. So, so anyway, rosemary helps with that retarding the hardening of the arteries and helping to regulate the cardiovascular system. So, oh, wait, got a few more. Ylang oils, they come from a small tree. It's Ylang-Ylang. That's how you spell it. And it's used in these countries where it comes from for trauma and shock. Helps to reduce breathing, like if you're hyperventilating, right? Or it also helps to reduce the heart rate. So it really supports, feelings of anxiousness and overall that's going to bring down blood pressure, right? Lemon balm, low doses of this have been shown in animals to reduce ischemic injury to the heart. Of course, they haven't tested that on people yet. So you want to be careful with that. But inhaling it, they believe that it will actually help support palpitations and heart concerns, may even reduce blood pressure. I don't know if you smelled a fresh lemon lately, they smell pretty good, right? And then lavender. Lavender is effective in aiding neurological disorders, acts as a mood stabilizer and a sedative. So of course, any of that's going to help bring blood pressure down, right? You see where I'm going with that? Okay, well, we're going to move on to our exercise. Inactivity and blood pressure are really linked. They're so closely linked that the first line of treatment by several health authorities like the International Society of Hypertension, the U.S. Joint National Committee on Detection, Evaluation, and Treatment of High Blood Pressure. Committees like that all agree that increasing your exercise is very good to help lower blood pressure. So research shows that inactive individuals have a 30 to 50% greater risk of blood pressure concerns than their active counterparts. So I don't know what your exercise routine looks like, but I know people that, boy, if they don't jog every day, and I guess it just helps get frustration out. And I know I jump on a rebounder, which is really helpful for me, and that helps me just clear some negative emotions at the same time. So I have zero concern about blood pressure issues. So prioritize movement in your day. Now, a couple of other factors that may influence your blood pressure are varied, but diet and exercise are important strategies to control your blood pressure. But a few other things, you can incorporate into your life to positively affect your blood pressure and improve that overall health. So let's talk about some of these other factors. One, of course, is what you see here, kicking a habit. Quit smoking is a great one. Addressing, potassium to sodium ratios. Maybe even practicing intermittent fasting. That'll start to work on that insulin leptin concern. And reducing your stress may also impact your blood pressure. So I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people who go to that stress topic and go, but how? How do I do that? How do I stop that stress problem? And Yeah, I get it. Especially, you know, in corporate America, deadlines are there. You know, I worked with somebody who, uh, executive for a big firm in town, and we were working on a different situation there. But I said, well, how often do you take a break for lunch? And the response was, well, I can get lunch down in 6 to 8 minutes. And I thought, okay, so we're having 6 minute lunches, which means we're not chewing well, which explains a lot about digestion and everything else going on with this person, right? So that's how stressful people are right now, and especially with any world events, right? So the connection between stress and hypertension is like super well documented, yet it doesn't really receive a lot of emphasis that it deserves. So it's been shown that people with heart disease can lower the risk of subsequent cardiac events by over 70% just by learning to manage their stress, right? So how are we going to do that? So I'm going to give you a suggestion or two. But these suppressed negative emotions like fear, anger, and sadness can severely limit your ability to cope with the unavoidable everyday stresses of life. So it's not the stressful events themselves that are harmful, it's how you cope, right? Do you know, like, you might handle a problem one way and your spouse handles it totally different. Like, you think it's no big deal and your spouse is like freaking out about it. How we handle, how we cope is really the key. So the good news is there's strategies that exist to quickly and effectively transform, these suppressed negative emotions and relieve stress. One popular method is the aroma freedom technique. That is a simple but effective technique for using those Young Living essential oils, combined with intention and awareness. And what you do is you break through and transform the negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions and memories that may be holding you back. There's an actual step-by-step process for that. Aroma freedom technique. You can learn more about that. We'll put a link. We actually provide that service in our practice. Again, it can be performed across the country. You don't have to be in the Metroplex to take advantage of that. You will want to have the Young Living essential oils that we require for the actual technique. There are a set specific, 5 or 6 of them that you want to have, and we can make sure you have those in front of you before we would start that process. But if you really like the aromatherapy piece and that really resonates with you, I would highly suggest giving our office a contact at accesscompletewellness.com and ask for the aroma freedom technique process. You can, again, learn more about it on our website under our services. Another service that we offer is something called emotional regulation. Now, this process does not require essential oils. So if you don't want to have essential oils in the picture, listen up. This might be the way to help with that one. So this is a really efficient process to resolve conditions like depression, PTSD, fear, anxiety, anger, grief, lots of stuff. And the critical benefit of the work is the ability to resolve longstanding traumas and emotional patterns without emotionally being reactivated. Yeah. So like look at active memories over time frame and resolve it without reactivating it because the emotion or the memory came back up. So these sessions are rarely in excess of 30 minutes to obtain complete and permanent resolution. And then there are follow-ups just to make sure everything's okay, just check-in calls. Doesn't require essential oils, can be done remotely. So if you live in another part of the country, no problem. This is a really nice, smooth process. But if either of those didn't quite do it for you, let me show you a family option that might be helpful. We love this tool in our practice called BrainTap. And we are able to make it available to you. Again, long distance you don't have to be in our practice. If you are in town and you want, when we're able to fit you in, we can provide these services to you. But this headset is guided meditation. So again, the whole family can use the same headset, right? Just clean it in between use. But this headset offers over 45 topics and over 700 programs. We're talking about topics like PTSD, stress, anxiety, weight loss, improving your golf games, public speaking, you know, you name it, addictions, you know, there's all kinds of programs. So they're guided meditations by trained psychologists. In the earpiece are red light therapy. It's called auricular therapy. It's stimulating on the ear points, actual acupuncture points on the ears. That visor comes down. That visor is also stimulating your eyes, the visual cortex, to help these belief systems and changes and habits reverse, go the other way. Again, so accesscompletewellness.com/braintap. You go there, you can learn more about this. You can order yourself a headset, use it, you know, yourself and your family, and then pick from any number of wellness packages that they have that would definitely include some of the stress management things. People are getting some phenomenal results from this. Now, before we move on to questions, we are doing a special class on April 28th, Tuesday. You'll notice that's not our normal time. This class is very important right now. The whole world has figured out they have an immune system, and so everybody's interested in it now. So I will be putting this together, allowing you all to learn a whole lot more about the infectious disease process and the role of immunity in so many aspects of your life. So please be kind, share this link. These classes are free. Please share this link with people that you know. There are a lot of people that have concerns about their immune system and they need answers. So that's what we're here to do, is to help out with that. Our accesscompletewellness.com/upcoming-events page. However, also on the accesscompletewellness.com homepage at the bottom are some of the classes that'll be coming up. We inserted this one specially for such a time as this. So I hope you will not just take advantage of it and register, because you got to register to get the details, but that you'll also share it. It doesn't do you any harm in sharing, and you might just help save somebody's emotions and life. So if you have any questions, I'll stay quiet for a moment. We'll see if there's any questions. And what I'll do here is I'll put up our contact information. You can reach out to us. Again, priority-based healthcare. So many of the services I mentioned, if not all of them, are done remotely. So it doesn't matter where you are in the country, we can help you out if you're needing that kind of support. accesscompletewellness.com is our website. Phone number 972-712-0892. Also, you can reach us at our email, info@accesscompletewellness.com. When you go to our website, be sure to like us on Facebook. You'll get some tidbits on Facebook that you might not normally hear from us. And certainly follow us on Twitter as well. We thank you so much for taking your time. We know you have a choice in what you can do with your time. When we record these classes, we are so grateful for our audience and our listeners, and we thank you for sharing this information with others that you know. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic week.